What's up, y'all? Can you see my new collar? So it is time for the next video in my Starting Your Own Fursuit Business series, and if you watched the last video, you know that this video is basically going to be the opposite, and that is going to be 5 mistakes that first-time fursuit makers make when doing commissions, and how you, as a customer, can deal with them. Now, same kind of disclaimers as the last vid if you watched it. These are not mistakes that, just first-time fursuit makers make. Makers of any level can still make these mistakes. And these are not mistakes that you just as a first-time customer will see. You'll see them probably when you commission multiple suits. But I'm just going over them because, everybody makes mistakes for the first time and it's most common in learning fursuit makers. I'm also going to be going down the list 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One is going to be, the worst of the worst. But the other 5 are kind of just like in, mix and match order. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say beforehand, so with that, let us begin. Okay, number 5 on the list is fursuit makers who use bad supplies. Now, if you've watched some of my other vids, you know I harp on fursuit makers using good supplies a lot. And to that, I've gotten a lot of people saying, oh, you don't need to use this, you can just go use this while you're learning, and you don't have to get top quality products while you're still making fursuits for practice. And that is true. You don't have to use, top quality products if you're still learning, if you're still practicing, but that's the key. Only if you're still learning. When you decide to take on a fursuit commission, you're making the decision to put your product out into the world for somebody else to have for a lot of money. And with that lot of money comes customers who are expecting top quality products, so you can't skirt by anymore. So using things like lower quality products, things like craft fur you might find at your local arts and crafts shop, that's not gonna work anymore. And I'm not harping on you because I think you need to use quality products. Personally, I do believe that you should, practice making with quality products because you need to wane off the lower quality eventually. But one of the main reasons you really need to invest in the better stuff is because when you don't, bad materials is the first and easiest way that a customer can take you down. When they get their fursuit, the bad materials is what they're going to see first. Maybe there's other things wrong with the fursuit, but if you have that bad fur and those bad supplies going on, that is the first thing that they're going to pick out. Because I'll tell you this right now, bad materials are not the best at hiding themselves. It's really easy to see from the get-go. And so again, that's the fastest way that a customer is going to give you a bad review or say this maker is not using the good materials. And they might put on the suit later and find out there's other things wrong with it, but again, the materials are going to be their first red flag that something is wrong. So fursuit makers, don't give them that opportunity to tear you down so quickly. If anything, get good materials so you can hide the bad structural stuff underneath for a longer time. But yeah, good materials are the key to a good fursuit, obviously. And I'll say this right now for those who are, concerned that they don't want to spend money on better materials. Not all good materials are expensive. I would say that the one big one is the fur. Yes, fur is expensive. It's like $20-some a yard and, more if you're in other countries. But that's kind of it. I don't use a ton of very expensive material on my fursuit. Like for say, I use minky fabric that's on the inside of the ears. That's only depending on where you shop, about 12 bucks a yard. That's not bad. I use hot glue, which is pretty cheap. I use just regular thread. It's not that expensive. I even use this spandex stuff. That's also I don't know, 12, 15 bucks a yard. Again, not super expensive. So just because it's a higher quality product doesn't mean it's gonna break your bank. So don't shy away from getting the better stuff just because you think it's gonna be expensive, because that's not always true. Also, one final note upon bad materials. Bad materials is not just, for fur and fleece and minky and all that stuff, all the fabric. It can also mean things like metal. Oh my gosh, don't use metal in your fursuit at all. The only time you should ever maybe use metal is if you're doing a realistic head, but then again, do not put any kind of, unsealed metal in your fursuit. Goodness gracious, that's dangerous. Same thing goes for if you maybe installing a fan in your fursuit head, if you have, you know, frayed wires or wires that are not sealed in, anything that can physically hurt your customer is a big red flag, and that's going to take you down even faster than bad materials, because while bad fur might get you bad reviews, having, you know, unsealed metal in your fursuit head is going to straight up kill your business, because you are now a dangerous fursuit maker to work with, and nobody wants to wear anything on their head that is going to cause them bodily harm. So that's basically it. Just try and keep away from bad materials as best as you can. If you are strapped for cash, try and make do as much as you can, or postpone taking commissions, because again, no customer wants to buy a fursuit where they're getting low quality materials, and no fursuit maker wants the bad reviews that come with using those low quality materials. So customers, what can you do if you run into this problem? Well, you have about 2 things you can do. Number 1, first and foremost, is do your research. That means look around at your fursuit maker of choice. Like I said before, bad materials are not very good at disguising themselves, you know, keeping themselves hidden. So if a maker is using bad materials, people are gonna know, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna post reviews. So do some research on your maker of choice. If they are using lower quality stuff, they'll probably, somebody somewhere probably will have written about it, and then there you go, you know, and you know not to commission that maker. Also, just look at their pictures. Like, look at the pictures of their product and like really like scrutinize it. With all the, you know, beautiful high def cameras we have nowadays, there's a lot of nicely detailed pics of fursuit makers' work. So you can kind of just look at it, especially in terms of fur, and be like, oh, that's good quality fur, or oh, that's not, that's craft fur. So it's really easy to basically just look at their products in terms of their own photographs and ask around and see what they use. I mean, you can also contact past customers and be like, hey, I'm thinking of commissioning them. What kind of materials do they use? Are they high quality? And then those people can vouch for them, or, you know, say, stay away, whatever they have to say. So yeah, just do your research. It's really easy. It doesn't take a long, and if this person is really using bad materials, you don't need probably more than 1 or 2 people to, they'll all just be like, yeah, don't do it. So it doesn't take a lot of time, and it'll save you a lot of, you know, time in the long run from commissioning somebody bad. And the second thing you can do is, even if you have done your research and you've heard that this maker does use nice materials, but you're still a little nervous, you can always message them and propose they use something that you are comfortable with. And that means, like, if you want them to use a specific fur so you know exactly the kind of fur, find a website from fur that you might have gotten from before and say, hey, I really love the shade of this fur, could it be used on my fursuit? Or I really love whatever material this is, I've used it before, could it be used on my fursuit? And most fursuit makers will be like, sure, why not? And that's the thing, you don't even have to phrase it as, oh, I don't trust you, could you please use this? Just be like, I really like how this looks, and I've used it before, I would love it if you could use it. And that's completely fine. I don't know any maker who will really like reject you for asking to use a fur off of a specific site that you trust or something like that. I've definitely worked with customers before who have requested fur off specific sites and had no problem with them. All the fur has been fine. So don't be afraid to approach your maker and, you know, suggest materials that you want used on your fursuit if you want to make sure that you're getting exactly something that you know is going to look good. Okay, number 4 on this list. I'm kind of going to be talking more to fursuit makers specifically than the customer, although I will obviously address you later. But that is fursuit makers who experiment on customers' work. Now, before I get a bunch of people who are angry and be like, what are you talking about? Let me clarify. I'm not talking about when you want to experiment on a customer's, you know, commission in ways like, oh, maybe I want to add a few more teeth, or maybe I want to, you know, do the hair poof a little different. Small things. That's not what I'm talking about. Things that aren't really going to drastically change the outlook of the fursuit. I'm talking about when you're working on a customer's commission and suddenly out of nowhere you're like, I'm going to try digigrade padding for the first time. Or I'm going to, instead of carving a foam base, I'm going to make the face off of a mold. That's what I'm talking about. big experimentations that more often than not, you've never done before. Things that are drastically going to change the fursuit from what the customer thinks they are getting based on your past work to something completely different. Fursuit makers, please don't do that. There is a time and place for big experimentation, and honestly, it's on your personal suits. I can't tell you how many personal suits of mine have techniques that I've never tried on any other fursuit before, and some that I've never tried since, because guess what? They didn't work. So please do not experiment on commissioners' work, because here's the thing. If you're trying something you've, never done before, something really big, there is a really good chance that it's not gonna work out. And even if it works out, there's a certain chance that it's not gonna be the best you can do. Now, I will say I am personally guilty of this from time to time, but again, there is a big difference between small experimentation and experimentation on things you've never done before. One of the reasons I felt comfortable to take those risks is because I had been making fursuits for years at that point. So I knew what I could do, I knew what I couldn't do, and I felt comfortable taking those risks, thinking that whatever I did create would definitely be workable for a client's fursuit. That being said, if you truly do feel like you want to take these big steps with clients' work, always, always, always tell them. Never do something like this just out of the blue. I have seen makers in the past do things like this, drastically change something that is integral to their fursuit style, just kind of without telling the customer. They kind of just did it because they thought it would be good. And it never worked out. Customers got angry, and the biggest thing of this obviously is the fact that the customer commissioned a fursuit that looked like that, and then they got a fursuit that looked like that, and they're like, what the heck is this? This is not what I ordered. So always make sure that the customer is aware that you are doing this and that you want to try it out. I will say that the first time I did Digi was on a customer suit, so I am, like I said, guilty of this. But I did it with their full consent, and if I'm remembering right, they actually wanted me to try it on their suit. So always make sure your customer knows what is going on. They know what the risk is. They know that it might not come out right. They know that you're trying this for the first time. Just make sure they are completely aware and they are 100% okay with whatever comes out, because that's going to save you in the long run if something doesn't work out right. But overall, I would say do your best to keep your experimentation to your own personal suits. Because here's another thing. One good reason to try it out on your personal suits is that if you try it and it doesn't completely work, but it works a little bit, you see exactly what you did wrong, you see exactly what you have to do right next time, and then the next time you do it, you can do it on a client's work and you don't have to tell them, because you've already tried it, you've already tested it, and you know what to do right next time. And so that means that when you do it on that customer's work now, it will work. And so you don't have to tell them, because hey, it works. Like, you don't have to go over with your clients when a technique is working. So it's always beneficial to try it out on your personal work first. And if you're like, oh, I don't make a ton of personal suits, I don't have time, you don't have to make a whole fursuit. Like, say you want to try digi-padding. There is definitely ways to just make the leg of the fursuit that you don't have to make the whole fursuit to try out digi-padding. And say if you want to, change your face shape, you can just make a base. Or if you want to try molds, just do a bunch of fake molds and then trash them afterwards. You don't have to make a personal suit. You can just try these experimentations small time. But yeah, I would say stay away from experimentation on customers' fursuits unless you have completely gone over it with them and they're okay with it, but still try and keep it to your own stuff. I guarantee you it'll be better on the long run. Not to mention, if you are experimenting on your own stuff, you don't have to ask anybody for permission. You just do whatever you want. And I mean, who doesn't want the freedom of doing that? So clients, what can you do if a suit maker is feeling experimentational and they want to, try something new? Well, this is probably the one I will say, unfortunately, you can't do much except to, hope they don't do that. But if they do, message you and say, hey, I want to try this, it's new, whatever they say, and you don't feel comfortable, tell them no. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't want that done on my fursuit, because If you don't know what it is, if you think it's gonna make the fursuit look a lot different, just say no. I mean, it's your commission. You're paying them the money. If you don't want something done, don't just be like, well, just tell them, I don't feel comfortable with that. Can you, like, please not. I would prefer not. And fursuit makers, please listen to them. Don't just be like, well, I'm doing it anyway, because that's not gonna turn out good. So customers, always just tell them you don't want to, or, you know, if you're feeling, you know, generous, be like, sure, why not? Could be fun, whatever. It's just whatever you want to do. So when they do message you and say, I want to do this, respond how you want, but always make sure that you know what you're getting into and you are fully consenting to it. Okay, number 3. These last 3, like the last vid, are going to be the, you know, less friendly ones, the more aggressive ones, I guess you could say. Okay, the real number 3 is fursuit makers who are bad at communication. Now this one and number 1 is going to sound very similar, but they are not, because there is one key difference. First of all, I'm going to explain what I mean by fursuit makers who are bad at communication. I know it sounds kind of, you know, self-explanatory, but this is when a fursuit maker does not, you know, reach out to you very often. This is when you are working with a fursuit maker who has a hard time messaging you, or has a hard time sending you whips. Now please do, side note, do not confuse this with a fursuit maker who is not messaging you because they're not working. Personally, I take on commissions and then I don't even get to work till a couple months later. And in that time, I'm not talking to my customers at all because there's no reason for me to. It's not because I'm ignoring them. It's because I literally don't have anything to say. I don't have any updates to give. It's not even time to work yet. So please do not confuse this one with a fursuit maker who's not messaging you just because they're not working on your commission yet. If you are sending them payments, they'll answer you then, but don't be like they're bad at communicating, because they're not bad. They just have nothing to say. This is when a fursuit maker is working on your commission and they have a hard time messaging you. They're, like I said, they're just not sending you whips. They're not really, you know, reaching out to you. They never really start the conversation first. But the difference between this and number 1 is the fact that if you do message them, they will answer you. They will always answer you back, and generally in a pretty tidy, you know, fashion. So say you haven't heard from them in a while they're working on your suit, and you message them and you be like, hey, how's it going? Looking for, like, any progress if you have any, thanks. And within a day or so they say, oh my gosh, hey, yeah, I'm totally doing work, here is a whip, if they have it. Or they'll say, I'm gonna be starting work soon, so whatever. This is when a fursuit maker will respond to you, and they generally have something to say. They'll say what they're doing, and they'll always be nice about it, and that's it. So like I said, this is when a fursuit maker has a hard time reaching out to you, but they do respond to you, and you know, they're generally still working. So you're thinking, why do suit makers have this problem? Well, there's a couple reasons for, you know, bad communication skills. I think one of the big ones, especially with people, you know, around my age, is anxiety and things like that. And so they can get very anxious, and it's hard for them to message you because, you know, they have that anxiety, and that is something really hard to deal with. And so generally they, like I said, they have a really hard time messaging you. Another thing might just because they're super busy, like they're working and they don't have time to sit down with their emails, so they don't really message out very often. I've definitely done that before, where I just haven't answered emails for a week because I just don't get that time to sit down with my computer. And so I also suffer from anxiety too. I definitely have anxiety where I don't want to message a customer for a bit because I'm scared to hear what they might say, or I'm just like nervous to interact with them. So again, there's a couple reasons why fursuit makers do this, but neither of them are malicious. They just, you know, communication is hard. Now, fursuit makers, like I just said, I know this is difficult. I know sometimes you struggle with communicating and reaching out first. All I'm gonna say here is try. Just do your best. It can be anxiety inducing sometimes. Sometimes you just don't have the time, but all I'm saying is try your hardest to keep in contact. And by that, I don't mean just, you know, answering their emails when they answer you. I'm saying reach out to them first. Send them whips first. Message them and be like, here's an update. So just do your best to email them first. It can be difficult at times, but I guarantee you it's going to be better in the end when the customer sees that you are doing your best to reach out to them, that they don't have to track you down for these things. It will always be a happy ending for both of you. So do your best, take your medication like I do, and just communicate as best you can. So customers, what can you do if you are working with a fursuit maker who is, bad at communication? Well, first off, I will say, be polite. Be as polite as you can. Be as nice as you can. Don't be pushy. Don't be rude. Don't be angry that they haven't messaged you. Just be very professional, very cordial, very amicable, but stay on them. Message them first. Do not let them, disappear into the night because they haven't emailed you back in a while. Always message them and be like, hey, just looking for an update, hope you're doing well, stuff like that. Just be very nice about it. Be very professional. Don't be like, where's my whip or anything like that. Just always be nice. And like I said, if this is a customer who only suffers from bad communication, they will message you back and they'll be like, hey, thanks, hope you're doing well too. I have started on your fursuit, whatever, here's the whip. And it'll be good. Again, if this is a fursuit maker who only is dealing with bad communication, they will always be nice to you. They'll always be like, thank you for reaching out. Sorry I've been so busy, whatever they have to say. And they will update you. So customers, that's all you really can do. You can keep on them. You can just message them all the time. And hey, if you're nice enough, hey, you might make a friend out of it. Who knows? But also on the flip side, if you are a customer who, doesn't want to deal with that, some people don't have the patience to deal with, suit makers who are bad at communication. Even if there's no ill will, they just don't want to deal with that. Again, very politely, if you feel the need to, just say, hey, I want to cancel the commission. I just don't think we're a good fit to work together. So if you want them to refund you, say it. If you don't care, whatever, but just cancel the commission because you can't work with them. There's nothing wrong. Not every person works well with a specific fursuit maker. Just because you're commissioning them for a fursuit doesn't mean you're the two best people to work together, because this is a business relationship to get a product. So don't feel shame if dealing with somebody who is having trouble with communication is just not something that you personally are able to deal with. There's nothing wrong with that, and just politely let them know that, and just amicably cancel the commission. And again, if fursuit makers do suffer from this, generally they're also aware of it. They'll be like, I'm so sorry, I understand, thank you for letting me know. And I mean, of course I'm being optimistic. Sometimes these things don't turn out great. Sometimes the fursuit maker will get mad, or the customer might get mad, or anything, but I'm trying to be positive about it and give you a good way to end the relationship if you feel you need to. But again, I highly suggest, working with the fursuit maker who because if bad communication is their only problem, chances are you're still going to get a really good product. They just don't reach out to you a lot. It's not because their product's bad, it's not because they're avoiding you, it's just they're anxious or they're busy or something like that. So just work with them, and I can guarantee you're still going to get a great product.